Did Donald Trump just announce one of the biggest potential tax cuts in U.S. housing history? Trump says he is considering removing capital gains tax on housing. If this proposal goes ahead, it could dramatically reshape the real estate landscape and change the way millions of Americans think about selling their homes. On July 22, 2025, Trump stated that he is evaluating a plan to remove capital gains taxes on home sales. He explained that this proposal is being considered as a way to stimulate the housing market, especially if interest rates don't drop soon. Trump said, "We're looking at removing capital gains on home sales. It's something we're thinking about. If the Fed cuts interest rates, we may not need to do it, but it's on the table." His remarks follow growing concern over the housing slowdown, rising mortgage costs, and a lack of inventory. To understand the full weight of this announcement, we need to look at what capital gains tax actually is. Capital gains tax is the tax you pay on the profit made when selling an asset, in this case, a home. Currently, homeowners in the U.S. are allowed to exclude a portion of their profits from tax, up to $250,000 for individuals and $500,000 for married couples, provided the home was their primary residence for at least 2 of the last 5 years. If your gain goes beyond those figures, you pay capital gains tax on the excess, typically at a rate between 15% and 20%, depending on income. Under Trump's proposal, this tax could be completely eliminated, meaning no matter how much profit you make from selling your home, you wouldn't owe any capital gains tax. For example, if a couple bought a home for $300,000 and sold it years later for $1.2 million, under current law, they'd pay tax on $400,000 of that gain. Under this new proposal, they'd pay nothing. This would be a significant shift, especially for longtime homeowners or those living in high-value markets like California, New York, or Florida. According to recent estimates, around 13 million households in the U.S. currently pay capital gains taxes on home sales. That's roughly 15% of all homeowners. The ones who would benefit most from this policy are people who've owned their homes for decades or those in booming areas where prices have skyrocketed. So what's the goal behind this move? Trump and his supporters argue that removing capital gains tax on homes would encourage more people to sell. That increased activity could help unlock more housing supply in a market that is suffering from record low inventory. It may also help counterbalance the pressure of high mortgage rates by giving sellers more financial incentive to move. More sales mean more movement in the market, and that might help first-time buyers access homes that have been sitting off market for years. But it's not without controversy. Critics argue this policy heavily favors the wealthy, those who already own property and have seen massive gains. Eliminating this tax would likely cost the government billions in lost revenue each year. That money currently goes toward funding federal programs and services. There's also concern that this type of tax break could push home prices even higher, especially if buyers expect sellers to demand a premium once they're no longer losing profit to taxes. Economists also note that this proposal does nothing for renters or for people struggling to enter the housing market in the first place. Some view it as a political play aimed at older, wealthier voters, a key demographic for Trump. There's another layer here too. This proposal isn't something that can be passed by executive order. It would require full congressional approval. That means both the House of Representatives and the Senate would need to agree, a challenging feat in today's politically divided landscape. However, a bill called the No Tax on Home Sales Act has already been introduced by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who publicly supports Trump's plan. If Republicans take back full control of Congress, this idea could gain serious momentum. So, why now? The housing market is facing a crisis of affordability. Interest rates are high, mortgage payments are at record levels, and home builders are struggling to keep up with demand. Many homeowners who refinanced during the pandemic are locked into ultra-low mortgage rates and have little reason to sell. By removing the capital gains tax, Trump hopes to loosen up the market and increase inventory. At least that's the theory. Supporters say this would reward homeowners who built wealth and encourage property mobility. Opponents argue that it's a giveaway to the rich and risks further inflating home values. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. For the average homeowner who sells a property within the current $250,000 or $500,000 exemption limits, this policy won't make a difference. But for those with large gains, it could mean tens or even hundreds of thousands in tax savings. In the end, this proposal could become a defining issue in the upcoming election cycle. Trump is making it clear that real estate, wealth building, and home ownership will be at the core of his economic message. Whether it becomes law will depend on the political makeup of Washington in the months to come. For now, it's a proposal, but one that's gaining attention fast. What do you think? Is removing capital gains tax on housing a smart move to boost the market, or is it another policy that primarily helps the wealthy? Let us know in the comments.